Hey everybody, welcome back to Tipsy Testing. This is Jessica Moore, Customer and Partner Success Manager with Inflectra, and we're here today with Matt Heusser. Matt is the Principal Consultant at Exelon Development, where he recruits, trains, and does software testing and development. Matt is also a contributing editor for STQA Magazine and sits on the board of directors for the Association for Software Testing. Matt went independent in 2011, shortly after finishing a 2-year stint as a part-time instructor of information systems at Calvin College. Let's talk about some testing. Okay, Navila would like to know, what information blind spots are testers experiencing?
I mean, I would say right now, number one is the theory of risk is wrong. The theory of risk, which is frequently like, what risks can my tool see? Is not the same thing as the actual risks for the product. The software itself, in terms of defects or bugs being anything that bugs a customer. And then beyond that, there's another opportunity, which is you built the wrong thing. This isn't fit for use. There's going to be this problem. This has got a usability problem. There are all these things that could bug someone, which we say that's not a defect. That's a potential requirement enhancement.
Adam, do you have anything to add?
Sometimes I think the obvious is that what's right under your nose is forgotten because you're so busy focusing on the plan, as what Matt said. You're so much you process for almost like intelligence. And so having someone outside of the tent do a quick test that maybe no briefing whatsoever. So I think try the things that you think should never have changed just in case something weird happened. Look beyond the obvious.
How can a tester evaluate him or herself and understand if you are a senior evaluator or not?
I mean, again, there's such a wide range of what it means to be a tester. Are you a performance tester, security? Are you doing automated scripts? Are you doing exploratory testing? I mean, so it's really hard. In each of those fields, there's different levels of experience. I guess it's the range of experiences you've had. I mean, I would measure someone on, can you throw them into something they've never seen before and they can quickly get to grips with it, orient themselves, sort of like, I used to work for the Marine Corps, and they had this thing called the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, and act. How quickly can you do that? And I think an experienced person in testing has a smaller OODA loop than someone who is new at testing, who would take longer to observe, longer to orient, longer to decide, and longer to act. And so I think you can measure any of those disciplines by having this, who can assess, rapidly assess, know what the problem is, be right, be able to identify and quickly escalate and decide what we need to do. That's someone who's really valuable on your team and can teach people maybe who are new junior who don't have that level of yet competence.
There's a couple of them. One being that subject matter expertise, it's primarily tied to responsibility, scope, and breadth. So a senior person will be more responsible and will have a wider scope.
Matt, let's start with you this time. What's the difference between a DevOps engineer and DevOps QA?
Generally speaking, DevOps engineers eat fruity pebbles, but DevOps QAs prefer Lucky Charms. Like, what I mean by that is, like, I don't know. I'm not really familiar with the term DevOps QA, but my guess would be the QA person would be building the portions of the pipeline that involve testing, test automation, and quality. Like, monitoring can include quality, alerting can include quality, rollback can include quality, and then DevOps is broader. All of the pieces of the pipeline that conceptually you could write it down and could be followed by a person without thought, we're going to automate all the pieces of that pipeline. So we're getting off topic, but I'll tell you a consulting secret, right? Is that in many large organizations, there's a disconnect between management and the contributors. And it's something like, can we offshore? Well, if they ask the contributors, they're going to say no because they're going to be afraid of getting fired. So they bring in the consultant to figure it out. And all the consultant has to do is ask the people at the bottom. The other trick is, from the outside, I can probably see things that you can't see because you're an insider. So those two things alone will make me a powerful consultant walking in.
But to answer the original question, I mean, you're right. I mean, they're meaningless terms in many ways because DevOps is supposed to bring it all together. So engineers, QA should all be the same. But I think what Matt said makes sense. The DevOps engineer is going to be thinking about, how do I compile the code as fast as I can? How can I build a database as fast as I can? I can optimize all the scripts, all the bits and pieces that build, compile, deploy, develop. The QA is going to be thinking more about risk. So I think there's that different mindset. Developers want to fix the problem. Testers want to institutionalize the finding of the problem before you fix the problem, and that's the difference.
Adam, why don't we start with you this time? What does testing look like 5 years from now and 10 years from now?
5 years from now will be a lot like we have today. I think there will be an emphasis on automation, and AI will make certain things easier. There's a lot of manual automation. I think computers can hopefully make that less repetitive. And I think but I think in 5 years from now, we'll still be having a lot of the human thought to find usability. The end users, I think as Michael Bolton said last week, the end users of most of our systems are human, therefore humans have to test it.
Well, since we were just kind of discussing the future of testing, how does exploratory testing fit into this modern world of continuous testing?
So what I would submit is that as the ratio of devs to testers gets higher and the amount of tooling that we use increases, we need to continue to keep focus and attention on the human, the thinking human in the process. And that's a fundamentally exploratory process, to the point that I don't even really talk about exploratory testing anymore. I just call it testing. There may be some times where you need like a recipe book, which is, okay, I need to create this kind of an account and it's not quite worth automating, and I can set it up. Those little sort of snippets and scripts, those are fine.
Test cases have gotten a bad name because of the way people have approached writing them and the way they think of them. A test case chart or a test case, it's not that different. It's just make humans do things that humans are good at, which is infinite patterns, trying things outside the box, have a computer try all the regular stuff, and that's good. So I think it makes total sense. Don't see exploratory testing as a separate discipline. It's just humans testing in the way that humans are messy and dangerous, and that's what we use and what we do.
Over 2 decades of a career in testing, I continue to see the same discussions on the same topics. Are we not passing on our learnings enough?
So a couple things are happening. One is you've got IT has an 11, 12, 13% growth rate annualized, which means it doubles every 5 years, which means half of the people in the industry have less than 5 years of experience, because that's how math works.
Mm-hmm.
Testing grows a little slower. So over time, because of compound interest, it looks like there are less testers, but that's only because we're growing more slowly relative to the rest of the industry. So yes, and we are not good at passing on our learnings, and we are reinventing the wheel. But I think the market is getting educated. As for like, we're having the same conversations, man, nothing new here. Like that argument, yeah, I've heard that one before. One, what's your new idea? And two, you show me a high functioning team that has learned the basics, and then we can start trying to go ahead. How many of those you got? So let's just kind of get the basics right, and then we can talk about what's next.
Adam, would you like to add something to that?
The reason people may feel this is happening is not because people aren't learning the lessons, but I think it's because the industry has become so much more broad. I mean, you think about where computers are in our lives now versus 20 years ago, the expectations we have from technology are so much higher that companies and businesses that didn't think technology was their thing, the mom and pop store that sells cupcakes that now has to be able to deliver cupcakes remotely, I think technology has just become so much pervasive that new people are learning the old mistakes while the old people have had to learn new mistakes. Software is so much more pervasive that everyone who would never before had to deal with it is now learning the mistakes that the industry leaders had learned. So I think we're succeeding. I think we're just spreading that knowledge, and now we have to then expand that knowledge to and deepen the knowledge to the people who never had to even worry about it before.
How can Agile be adapted for use by a team of subject matter experts in validating a third-party COTS?
COTS, commercial off the shelf.
Okay, implementation.
Well, you got SAP. Someone's coming in, they're deploying SAP. That's out the window. You're not starting with a minimum viable product, except you really are. I think if you think of the vanilla implementation as being your base system, Agile still can work. You can take that base system that you've inherited from Salesforce or SAP or Oracle, whatever your COTS package is. Every change, every customization is going to be your user story. Whereas with a custom-built solution, your base case is 0 lines of code, but your base case with most COTS systems is going to be you log in, it's got a bunch of tabs and a bunch of windows, and it has some workflows, and now you go in and start thinking about how do we want to use this tool, and that's the same thing. So the difference is you're tweaking something to match your needs, and it starts with a working solution. but the reality is every user story is going to be the deviation from that vanilla solution. So I think Agile completely works. You're just starting from a different point.
Matt?
Doesn't change a lot with Agile. I would try to meet every day. I try to have the customers and the users and the technical staff in the same room. I do something like a stand-up. I would have goals for every couple of weeks, and then I would do planning and a retrospective. So you could put the sort of Scrum pieces into it.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Adam. Thanks for being here. Next week, we're shifting to Friday, and that'll be Kyle Alexander Siemens from Bright Test. And it'll be great to have him.
Okay.
Well, thanks very much, guys. Thanks to all those who joined us this week, and we'll see you next week.